Hi everyone, good day. This is your teacher, Ma'am Nich, and welcome to your first class in creative writing. Get ready to have fun and learn at the same time as we go through the various elements related to writing and appreciating literature. Let us begin this course by answering this question. What is creative writing? I know that you already have ideas in your mind when you hear these words. So basically, it is just a combination of writing and creativity. Here are some basic ideas that you have to know about creative writing. First, creative writing refers to any writing that goes outside the bounds of normal professional, journalistic, academic, or technical forms of literature. As compared to these forms, creative writing is less technical since it is usually written to entertain more than to inform. Creative writing is written with the creativity of the mind that aims to express something, whether it be feelings, thoughts, or emotions. This is exactly what transpires in us every time we read a novel, short story, or a poem, or even when we listen to our favorite songs. Now let us try to answer another significant question. What literary genres are considered creative writing? Some familiar genres of creative writing include poetry, short stories, novels, film and television screenplays, stage play scripts, and lyrics. But apart from these, there are still a lot of writings which we can include in this category, such as magazine articles, essays, greeting cards, and feature stories you find in newspapers. So remember that creative writing is not just limited in what we usually read and write in school. This time, let me discuss with you the distinct features of creative writing. And the first one is sensory imagery. So what is it about? Sensory imagery involves the use of descriptive language to create mental images. It works by engaging a reader's 5 senses. To simplify, this device helps the readers imagine what they are reading. To help you understand this further, here are 5 sensory images used in creative writing. We have visual, gustatory, auditory, olfactory, and tactile. Let us begin with visual imagery. Based on the picture, you can assume that visual imagery engages the sense of sight. Physical attributes including color, size, shape, lightness and darkness, shadows, and shade may be described in this type of sensory image. Let us have these examples. Number 1. The full moon rose slowly over the trees, blanketing the farm with its pale glow. In this sentence, full moon describes the shape of the moon. Rose slowly over the trees is a description of how it moves. And pale glow is a description of its color. So with this simple sentence, the reader can already imagine that it is nighttime and the moon is big and radiant. Let's have example number 2. An old hound dog kept watch from the safety of the rickety porch. The sparkle of the wet grass reflected in his eyes. In the second example, old hound dog describes the subject, which is the dog, rickety porch describes the condition of the dog's location, which is rickety or shaky. Sparkle of the wet grass describes the condition of the environment. So in this sentence, the old hound dog is carefully guarding a house in a garden, and it probably just rained because of the wet grass. Again, these words help the reader imagine what the scenario looks like. That is visual imagery. Next is gustatory imagery. This type of sensory image engages the sense of taste. This can include the 5 basic tastes, which are sweet, salty, bitter, sour, and umami, as well as the textures and sensations tied to the act of eating. For example, the sweet buttercream icing melted on my tongue. In this sentence, sweet describes how the buttercream tastes, while melted describes the sensation while eating it. Simple, right? How about example number 2? I closed my eyes to savor the richness of the warm spice cake and knew I would have a second piece before the end of the night. In this sentence, the taste and sensation of eating the cake were also described by using the words richness and spice, but it also described the temperature with the word warm. The third sensory image is auditory imagery. This engages the sense of hearing. Literary devices such as onomatopoeia and alliteration can help create sounds in writing. I will be discussing these sound devices in our next lessons, but for now, let us have these examples. First, the clank of heavy plates drifted from the kitchen and fought with a steady hum of couples in conversation. In this sentence, the phrases marked in red may imply that the speaker is surrounded by people who are eating and continuously talking to one another. Example number 2. The splatters of rain on the ground was like the sound of bacon being pan-fried. In this sentence, the sound of raindrops is compared to the sound of bacon being fried, which may imply that the rain is a little loud or heavy. Again, these words appeal to the sense of hearing. The next sensory image is olfactory imagery. This engages the sense of smell. Scent is one of the most direct triggers of memory and emotion, but can be very difficult to write about. Since taste and smell are so closely linked, you'll sometimes find the same words such as sweet used to describe both. Simile is common in olfactory imagery because it allows writers to compare a particular scent to common smells like dirt, grass, manure, or roses. Let us have the examples. That stinks like rotten meat, said Seth, clamping his hands over his nose. In this sentence, the speaker compared whatever he is smelling to rotten meat, which implies a negative connotation, telling the readers that the smell is bad or stinky. Example number 2. He took in a deep breath and smelled the damp earth, the kind worms loved, and rotted trees from the nearby woods. The second example describes smell in a not-so-literal manner. How would you explain the smell of earth? In this sentence, the writer tried to appeal to the reader's mind and sense of smell by mentioning things in the environment such as woods, trees, and worms, thus letting the readers imagine how the scenario smells based on their own experience. And the last sensory image is called tactile imagery. This one engages the sense of touch. This refers to what you can feel and includes textures and the many sensations a human being experiences when touching something. Differences in temperature is also a part of tactile imagery. Let us have the first example. The sudden plunge into the cool water took his breath away and raised goosebumps on his arms. The words cool and goosebumps describe the sensation that we feel whenever our bodies suddenly feel cold. Example number 2. Her marriage felt like a beach after a storm. Messy, tangled, and trashy. The second sentence made use of adjectives to describe feeling. These terms connotes that the marriage is unhealthy because they are all pertaining to something negative, which is compared to a beach after a storm. Based on these examples, tactile imagery does not just refer to physical sensation, but can also appeal to human emotions. Now let us recall. Again, visual sensory image appeals to the sense of sight. Gustatory is to taste. Auditory is to hearing. Olfactory is to smell. And tactile is to touch or feeling. Now let me discuss another literary device used in creative writing. Diction. A common misconception about this device is that it has something to do with articulation or pronunciation of words. It is not. But diction really refers to the writer's choice of words or language. Diction is the careful selection of words to communicate a message or establish a particular voice or writing style. What is the purpose of diction? It creates a certain tone that supports purpose. Let's say the writer's goal is to deliver a fun and romantic story to millennials. He has to consider the kind of language that will be relatable to such generation, or else the purpose will not be achieved. Second, diction helps support the setting. You all know that setting pertains to the time and location where a story takes place. If an author writes a story in which the setting is in a poor area, he would not use a vocabulary which is too formal. Instead, he will choose words that the commoners use on a daily basis so the language will be appropriate. Third, diction helps establish a narrative voice and tone. In telling a story or writing an article, the language must be consistent from beginning to end. So the writer has to choose a fitting diction to set the voice and tone of his piece. And last one, diction helps bring characters to life. Do you remember some of your favorite characters' signature line? Without choosing the proper diction to make their characters come to life, these popular movie lines would not leave a mark to audience like us, right? So choosing an appropriate diction really makes any writing more relatable and interesting. So if you will be writing your own story, what type of diction would you use? Here are the 5 types of diction. We have formal, informal, colloquial, slang, and poetic. Let's start with formal diction. This type of diction is the use of sophisticated language. It sticks to grammatical rules and uses complicated syntax, or the structure of sentences. This elevated type of language is often found in professional texts, business documents, and legal papers. Informal diction is more conversational and often used in narrative literature. This casual vernacular is representative of how people communicate in real life. Most stories and novels use informal diction. The third type of diction is what we call colloquial. Colloquial words or expressions are informal in nature and generally represent a certain region or time. Ain't and y'all are examples of colloquial expressions born in rural areas of the United States. Take a moment to read this example. In most places in the US, they often remove the sound of letter G in words like hanging or playing and pronounce U as ya as a colloquial term. Colloquialism is a language style which are only used or accepted in a certain community. They add color and realism to writing. The next type of diction is slang. These are words that originated within a specific culture or subgroup but gain traction. Slang can be a new word, a shortened or modified word, or words that take on a new meaning. Common Tagalog words are werpa, petmalo, and lodi, which are reverse versions of the words power, malapit, and ayaw. Kilig, which is an expression of giddiness when in love, and charot, which is a slang for joke or just kidding. Slang words are usually found in comic strips and now on varied social media pages. The last type of diction is poetic. Poetic diction is driven by lyrical words that relate to a specific theme reflected in a poem and create a euphonious or harmonious sound. Poetic diction usually involves the use of descriptive language, sometimes set to a beat or rhyme, just like these examples. This type of diction is what we often encounter when we read poetry or listen to song lyrics. If we are going to list these types of diction from the most technical to the least, this will be its arrangement. First is formal, followed by poetic. Third is informal. Fourth is colloquial. And last is slang. Once again, that is diction. And we're done! I hope you enjoyed learning sensory imagery and diction with me. Stay tuned because next time, I will be discussing figures of speech. You may now work on the activities in your worksheets. Take care everyone and thank you!